Welcome to the No Bull Political Arena with your hosts, Sophia Nelson, Bill O'Reilly, Brian Mistro, and TJ McCormick. It's real voices, raw politics, and no bullshit. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Political Arena. This is Brian Mistro. I'm here with Sophia Nelson, TJ McCormick, and really excited to have Denver Riggleman on, Republican Congressman Denver Riggleman. And thanks for joining us, Denver. We appreciate it.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Denver, I've followed you on X for a while. I've noticed that, many of your posts are very well reasoned. They seem to follow a very factual basis and things that you point out. I've really appreciated that. And the things that you talk about, you obviously know. Okay, there's no doubt about that. But do us a favor real quick, if you don't mind, before we dive into some of this and kind of give some of your background to the audience that may not know you.
Okay, yeah. So background, former Air Force intelligence officer, did a lot of work with NSA, with Air Force Special Projects, NSA Special Projects, usually going after threat infrastructures. Right before that, however, I was a mission planner for the B-1s and the F-15s, and 9/11. I did put, as a mission planner, help put warheads on foreheads during, Operation Enduring Freedom.
Wow.
Before that, part of Operation Allied Force on the on the Romanian Serbian border. Yeah, sorry about that.
Freudian slip. Yeah.
Tracking some of those bad actors, right, with the 726 Air Control Squadron out of there. Trained many of our allies in F-16 and air operations types of activities like the Omanis in 2000. By 2003, I was in NSA almost exclusively until about 2007, after I ran the Counter IED Operations Integration Cell. Actually tracked Soleimani in 2006 and 2007, if you guys ever want to talk about that.
Oh my gosh.
I tracked the Iranian to Iraqi resupply, so I didn't really cry over Khamenei's death or Soleimani's in 2020. So then after that, I had my company. I started in 2007. I sold it in 2012. I was the CEO continuously, though, through 2015. And in December of 2015, I decided I just wanted to fish all the time. So that's what I did for about 2 months, until the Pentagon asked me to come back, where I was the senior consultant for electronic warfare and countermeasures, until I was accidentally elected as a Republican congressman in 2018. Uh, 7 months into my term, I officiated a same-sex wedding, which pretty much I was done with the Republican Party of Virginia. I think Sophia was the first sitting Republican to ever officiate a same-sex wedding. I think.
You were.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
yeah, so things went a little crazy after that. So I went after QAnon. Started going after conspiracy theories pretty hard, because my background was in radicalization of Al Qaeda and ISIS, how they were doing that even as far back as 2001. With my partner, actually worked with the Al Qaeda Senior Leadership Shop, who I started my company with in 2007. Then after Congress, after the bizarre COVID church convention, where they didn't want to have a primary, after that, I actually was the senior technical advisor for the J6 committee. After I was done with that, wrote a book, did pretty well, called The Breach. And now I have an AI automation company, just globally expanded, just went through our Series A funding round, doing health and actual insurance technology automation, but also video surveillance and security automation, using AI, but also graph neural networks, which is pretty fantastic. And my wife and I own two whiskey distilleries, one in Virginia and one in the Pennsylvania and the Poconos. So we make bourbon, vodka, gin, and other types of delicious brown and white spirits.
Well, it's the I wish I could just do a show with you just on the spirits, and maybe you and I one time can go off on a different show and chat about that.
If you guys want to do a whiskey show, I really do love that. Yeah.
I'd love it. So I do want to hit back on one of the things you brought up, and that is your experience in the Middle East, and especially how it's going to affect our discussions tonight on the war with Iran. So we've just recently, they have come out with the official statement from Marco Rubio, I think about an hour ago, it might have been 2 hours ago, that the reason that they went to war, they're not using those words, but, special military operation, or whatever they want to call it, was because the was never a better chance, and the regime had never been weaker to hit them now and take them out. And so I'm paraphrasing what Rubio said. It's interestingly enough, that's exactly what we talked about last night on our show, TJ. So my question back to you is, what are your thoughts? Did we go into this for the right reason? I know you've been critical of this administration. I certainly have too. I've called some things that they've done right. And I'll just also say nobody's going to shed a tear about their leader on the highway to hell. So we're all good with that one. What are your thoughts? Where's the country at right now with that?
Denver, before you answer, let me give you a little more context because I feel like we need to set this up properly. So, Marco Rubio yesterday said something very different from what he said today, and that matters. And the President of the United States, of course, is all over the map on this and why he did it and what the reasons are. And Rubio got questioned by the press corps that the president said the reason that the attack was launched is because there was an imminent threat and attack to the United
Yeah.
States. Now, of course, he's got to say that because he didn't go to Congress and do it the right way. So Rubio then kind of agrees with that a little bit, but then says the imminent attack was against Israel, not against the United States. Hence, if we didn't step in, we could have been next, et cetera, et cetera. And then today he said what Brian relayed to you about they were never weaker, it was never a better time. You were a member of Congress. So my question is this legal? Is this allowed? And, to Brian's point, give us your thoughts.
Okay, well, this sounds so simple to unpack. I can't wait, right? This
Right.
sounds so easy to, but no, here's the first thing. The first thing is I had a pretty interesting discussion on this yesterday because my background was actually for years was tracking Iranian resupply of IEDs into Iraq, specifically using EFPs, explosively formed penetrators,
Mm.
which was one of the most dangerous EFPs that you can have, which actually creates almost a missile type SPAL-like effect and can penetrate armor. And it is just devastating. So for me to say that somehow that I am completely against the action of Iran, I would be lying. However, being in Congress, I think I can separate my personal need for military revenge and what Iran helped with,
Mm.
especially the Quds Force with Soleimani, what they did to our folks over in Iraq. I can separate that from, I think, what's an inconsistent and probably really bad reason to go into Iran right now, because I can't imagine that just the reason that they're weak would be the actual real reason we went in. So when you're looking at reporting and the data from this administration, they've been completely inconsistent for the year they've been in office anyway. Their messaging is always all over the place. I think none of them actually talk, or there's always so much infighting going on. Everybody trying to claw to the top to make Trump happy, not quite knowing why he's doing
Mhm.
what he's doing. They're coming up with weird reasons. I think we're in a new era of warfare. I think when you're going to choose to attack a country, not understanding what drone warfare is, I've been to Ukraine multiple times. I think they're so incompetent in their strategic decision making ability that they had no idea why they were getting in there really, or no idea how to get out, because Iran is a quagmire. 92 million people. When you're talking about Shahed drones, I was under Shahed drone attacks in Kherson and Mykolaiv. If they do have 50,000 Shahed drones, my guess is they're just going to inundate the battlefield at the beginning, use up our munitions, and then actually come in with the big boys, right? Which is what they did
Mm.
and what Russia is doing now with their fiber optic drones and what Ukraine is trying to do with their Baba Yagas. So I have a probably more in-depth understanding on drone warfare than almost everybody you're going to talk to. But that in-depth understanding of what Iran should do should have gone into the actual calculation of us attacking them in the first place. Also, I don't think they ever expected them to scattershot all the countries in the Middle East. I
Mm.
don't think that was an expectation at all, right? They didn't do that. And if they had already obliterated the Iranian nuclear program, why did we have to go back in again? If there wasn't an attack that was imminent, which was actually Rubio said there wasn't, and others have said there wasn't, why did we go in? There actually has been no reason why we went into Iran right now. And so what's the exit plan? They don't have one. Lastly, when Trump came out today and said they're going to insure through American taxpayer dollars to the DFC, I was on the Financial Services Committee. How in the hell are we going to insure all ships that go through the Hormuz
There you go.
Strait? If they get attacked, are we going to use taxpayer money for Chinese ships? what are we talking about here? That is just the most ill-informed, ill-formulated plan I've ever heard. So right now, I think it's easy for me because I was military to separate Khomeini's death. Nobody's worried about that.
Yeah.
But we have to look at strategic direction of what we're doing. And right now, it doesn't look that great. I think I'm understating that. It looks sort of ludicrous because we don't even have consistent messaging coming from the Pentagon or from the National Command Authority. So I'm just not quite sure what the hell we're doing here.
Would
Yeah,
there not
so-
have been some, I mean, first of all, I could not imagine ever getting as detailed and knowledgeable an answer on this.
Oh, sorry.
Subject
No,
from-
TJ, I love this stuff. I just,
It's fascinating to hear I mean, you talk about this the way Dean Smith would talk about, would talk
Thanks,
about a
TJ.
defensive scheme. I mean, it's incredible. It's just fascinating to hear it so eloquently put and actually put in a way that even an idiot like myself somewhat understood. But what I'm wondering is, was there not, now granted, this administration just cannot get out of its own way. It never has been able to. The first Trump administration, they would step on any good news that they generated with weirdness.
Yes.
At the same time, one thing that I have no reason to not take him at his word. One of the few things that Trump has been really consistent on and really articulate and somewhat eloquent at times, as to the extent that he can be eloquent. Easy, Brian. Is
there must be some other tension beforehand. I don't know.
Not goofy laughing doesn't help. The point is this: is he's very death averse, except for bad guys. That's what I get. He is, again, to the extent that we want to believe him or not, and that's where Brian's derisive laughter, I get it. To the extent that we want to believe this guy, he's very consistent when he says he doesn't like people dying. He gets into those, and his numbers are all over the place, granted. One week it's 25,000 people died in Ukraine, another week 10,000. He doesn't like death. He doesn't like dying, doesn't like young people dying. Is there not something to him being accused of leaving those protesters hanging in the lurch a month or so ago when they were out there and had their last best chance, a lot of people thought? Is there, now granted, he didn't articulate this. He didn't say, I'm there for the protesters. He didn't this time. But there were 30-something thousand innocents who were slaughtered for raising their voices in the last 2 months. Is there not something to that? And did we not do a service in that regard?
Wow, TJ, that's actually a pretty good question.
And shame on Trump for not articulating that if that's why we did it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I think that could be maybe a reason. I think it's a fantastic way to, maybe couch it. And I don't know, right? I haven't heard that. But I would offer this, TJ, is there inconsistency if he's worried about people dying on what's going on in Ukraine? Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at Ukraine, you're looking at all these places around here, and I'm talking about a consistency of foreign policy. The problem that I have with this administration, it seems to be knee-jerk or sort of pulling out of your rear parts type of reaction based on where Trump is that specific day.
No,
the problem that you, right, and the problem that you have if we're that worried about it. So I want to tell you guys this actually is completely linked, and I promise that there's a portion of this that I need to tell you guys. Mm-hmm. So I was in Ukraine in June, in the end of May, early June, when Ukraine struck the Russian strategic assets, if you guys remember that. So I was there.
Right.
The first night in Mykolaiv was 53 minutes of freaking bombardment. So I'm like, oh, let's go to Kherson. Not the greatest idea the next day, by the way. Wow. But then when I got to Odessa, was the worst night of it. So here I am, sort of stuck in Ukraine. I had to come out through Moldova. Right. So we had all kinds of stuff going on. The thing that I learned, though, when I was looking at the Ukrainian drone factories is like, why aren't more Americans next to us? Because the Russians have gotten so good with their Shaheds and their fiber optic drones. Now you're looking at the beginning of the war, an 8-to-1 sort of ratio. Right now you're looking back to 3-to-1. But lately it's back to 8-to-1 because a lot of the Russians are just running right into drone swarms, even though fiber optic drones from Russia are doing really well against Ukraine. And I could go into all that. But what I'm trying to say here is that because the U.S. is so separated from advances in drone warfare, because they're so separated from the new battlefield, when you're talking about digital trench warfare now, when you're talking about AI being used for specific targeting, or you're using it first person, you're talking about FPV drones, first person view drones that are getting so lethal. I'm just not quite sure who was looking at the mission plan for this and said, oh, it's going to be okay because the Russian Shahed drone is actually based on the Iranian Shahed.
Yeah.
Right. And the Iranians have perfected, right, their ability to utilize Shaheds in a way that's very difficult to shoot down using current integrated air defense systems. Let me tell you this way. Do you know how the Ukrainians shoot down Shaheds? 50 cows and AK-74s. So, right. So I actually got trained on how to shoot down Shaheds with a 50 cal in a basement.
Now you're just showing off, Denver.
I am
now
showing
you're
off,
just
TJ.
goddamn showing
I'm
off.
sorry. Yeah, Sophia, I am showing off, TJ. I'm sorry. But here's where it gets crazy, right? As somebody who was a professional mission planner, who was trained by the best, by the Air Force, worked with the Navy, worked with their prowlers, I guess I'm shocked. I guess my mind is blown, TJ, that if it was the reason we went after them, why wasn't the plan more specific on how we deal with the massive arsenal of Shaheds? Now we're putting Americans in harm's way. And with the 6 dead, if he's that worried about dead individuals, your mission planning has to be absolutely comprehensive on the entrance and exit. And lastly, I would suggest, if you're going to have confidence for the American people, make sure your story doesn't change every 10 minutes. Because when you're looking at a 60-40 against Iranian bombing, we have never seen this,
100%.
right? And that negative is going to go up as American bodies go up. So I would humbly submit this. Foreign policy has to lead with a strategic plan with an entrance and exit that has a specific mission-oriented goal. But if you're going to do that, make sure you're looking at the new way of doing this type of warfare. So I would humbly submit downstream, maybe the Americans should be side-saddling with the Ukrainians if they're going to go against somebody like Iran in a drone war.
At what point did we start to lose ground in drone technology? Because that can't
We
be
had
since...
the Switchblades, but I guess they're not competitive.
Not competitive at all. They're too expensive. So it's almost like our hypersonic. Gosh, TJ, these questions you guys are asking, I love it. You might as well just pitch me a softball now. When I say thanks, TJ. I think we stop being competitive when we're looking at the price and procurement model of the United States military. If you're looking at a Switchblade,
chronologically, when did we start to lose ground with the rest of the world with drones?
What a great question. May of 22.
Wow. So not that long ago.
I would, and you guys like, what, Dan? What are you talking about?
And
let's go back to March.
Right, and not this administration.
Well,
No, it was.
Let me ask
no,
this.
It's a true story, actually.
This is
we started losing issues with drone. Oh, I'm sorry, Sophia. I can answer it afterwards.
Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
You know, what's interesting is, obviously, I thought we should. I despise Russia. I could tell you guys why I was trained against Russian training. I've been there. Just a lot to talk about and unpack. If you ever guys want to have a Russia conversation, I'm happy to. But here's the thing. When they came in March of 22 into Ukraine, right, and they come up through Kherson, which was the first, you're talking about the Kherson Oblast and Mykolaiv Oblast were the first taken. Immediately, they started seeing surveillance drones. Ukraine knew that they had to actually react quickly. Yes, we gave them weapons. Yes, we sort of half-stepped into Ukraine during the Biden administration. We did enough to keep them afloat. But what happened was Biden and now the Trump administration has refused to engage with the Ukrainians in a very aggressive way to look at how drone warfare is evolving at speed. Listen, guys, the Ukrainians can make a $4,000 drone that's as very good as a $100,000 American drone. The issue just isn't actually technology. The issue is quantity and the ability to weaponize those drones quickly. But it's the tactics, guys. I would love to take you guys to Ukraine and just sit you down with a guy named Tango, an American who actually runs some of the drone warfare stuff over there, and go over the tactics. They're brilliant.
Why don't you bring Tango to the Poconos and we'll look at the.
We can do that, TJ. We can do that and drink.
Safer environment. Yeah, let's do it.
Much safer. You know what? That's a good idea.
So
TJ,
I just want to throw out one other comment too, because you brought up the drones, and I just read, I think it was yesterday or it might have been this morning, that the cost of the drones for Iran is running up to $20,000, maybe $30,000 a drone, and the cost for interceptors by Americans could be north of $1 million an intercept. And there's a limit of how much ammunition or our ability to be able to counteract those, not just in numbers, but just financially, and be able to replace those stocks.
So that is true. I can answer that question. We ran out of penetrating bombs in 2001, right? And that was just hitting caves, right? These are expensive weapon systems. And we are really good with tech. I mean, we are the best in the world.
Hmm.
I won't, I know this. I know our hypersonics are the best. The thing is, we might have, if we have 100 great hypersonic missiles, China has 4,000 medium hypersonic missiles. We will be, the fact is, a lot of these countries value quantity over quality. And I think that's something in our procurement system we're going to have to address.
So I'm going to break this up a little bit because if I'm on the other end watching this, my brain hurts at this point. Okay.
So,
So and that's because it's a great discussion, but it's a very elevated discussion. So I'd like to break this down into some things that I think the American people are concerned about that I think, Denver, you are uniquely positioned to answer. So let's go back to question number one, which is the war powers that the Senate's going to be voting on. Tim Kaines, as you know, introduced a bill some time ago, seeing this kind of coming that Trump would probably do something like this, and even Venezuela, etc. And I think in my gut, Cuba's probably next. I don't know, but I think he's probably going to hit somebody else because I think he's just on a spree. And I think that the question the American people have is who is really supposed to be in charge? My first question of war powers. Is it Congress? Is it the president? Is it both? Tell us how that works.
oh, goodness gracious. You know what's happened since the AUMF in 2001? I think Congress has slowly abdicated its war-making ability anyway. And I've been in Congress. Now, there are other things I want to discuss. As you guys know, I'm big time into the to the election stuff with Iran and stuff
We'll
like
get to
that.
it, I
And that
promise.
right. But here's what's interesting about it. I think it's an awful thing to say, but until Congress is really serious about bringing back its Article One powers or really taking back its ability to declare war or getting away from police actions, getting away from that whole AUMF model, they got to be much more serious than they are today. I don't think it's going to matter. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong right now, TJ, Brian, and Sophia. I'm not, but right now, I think with the executive and the power that the executive and even when I was there, like and starting in 2019, we were debating the AUMF, and man, what a debate that was, right?
Explain
Even in
what
the
that is,
conservative
Denver,
caucus.
for people that don't know. AUMF, what does that mean?
Are you talking about the authorized use of military force that actually goes to the president and the executive based on a terrorist action? So he has broad powers based on if you identify something as a terrorist action. So, you're talking about from 2001 on, a lot, even OEF is under the AUMF. And, a lot of people, it's sort of technical, right? A lot of people say we haven't declared war since World War II. Yeah, sort of. But the AUMF was sort of a declaration that based on specific types of actions, and people get all wrapped around the axle. What it really comes down to is that I think Congress needs to claw that back. But until you have a different type of majority in Congress, and even then, I'm going to tell you guys, even then, it's very difficult for Congress to decide on where a war starts and where it ends. And I just find it absolutely insane that we haven't been able to do that. But a lot of that has to do with the commander in chief of the United States, right? The president of the United States and the power inherent in him for certain military activities. And it's very hard, even with the Constitution, for the Congress to actually make that specific break on where a war ends, war begins. And then when you have something like this, with now we're going to be using British air bases, we have other people getting into it. The definition of war becomes sort of common sense, but when does it come a definitionally a war in Congress? And I think Congress needs to claw that back. I don't see that really happening in the next any time
So
soon.
follow up, who
Um,
pays for it? That's the next question that's on everybody's mind. There's a lot of go back to Venezuela, go back to this Commission of Peace, 10 billion there, another 10 billion over here, 20 billion there. We now have a war in the Middle East that we propagated. Where does the funds come from? If Congress hasn't authorized war, Denver, or an act of war of something, how does this get paid for?
A lot of it's going to come out already. What's in the defense budget? I mean, they'll just roll over certain monies they're going to use for other things, and they'll just change the color of the money. God, I hate to be just so it's pathetic to say that, but
Do
that's
it,
the
do it.
old contractor thing. They're just going to change the color of the money that they're using for Title 10 ops that they might take away from R&D or things like that. The other thing is, if you have a Republican still in control of Congress, all they're going to do is do emergency funding measures and just vote them through.
Well,
I
I just read
I,
too. I'll just add to that to your point. On Puck News was reporting before I got on that they're looking at putting another appropriations through the House.
I did not see that either, guys. I wasn't pretending to be
No,
prophetic here.
yeah,
That's just what
I
Congress is
gotta
going to
call
do,
bullshit
Sophia. It's
on
not
that.
even a
Bullshit, because we don't have money for health care. We don't have money for social programs and safety net. We don't have money for USAID and all these things, but we have money for all of this. I mean, I'm telling you, that's where the American people sit right now with this. Gas is going to go up. It's already gone up. Affordability has not been addressed. Denver, let's go to the midterms. Your forecast, and you can talk about the things that are on your mind.
yeah. I think the Dems take 40 to 45 seats. I
2018.
Think we'll have an
yeah.
election?
Oh
We'll
yeah, yeah,
have an
yeah.
election?
I think we'll have an election. The issue that I'm having is when he came out and said Iran tried to steal the election in 20 and 24. This whole conspiratorial thinking, it gives me chills, right? When I was looking at the draft executive orders that Sidney Powell was writing after they tried to use Executive Order 13848 to take the election, the foreign interference EO. I'm looking at this going, my God, it looks like the same playbook, disinformation, propaganda. I got the 17-page draft EO right here. I downloaded it, then I compared it using the old draft EOs that Sidney Powell and Patrick Byrne and Rudy Giuliani were writing. And I started to shake my head because my biggest fear is that domestic policy is running foreign policy on a level that we've never seen before. So, yes, I think we're going to have elections. I think it's going to be one of the most contested, lawfare fought midterms we've ever seen. And I think it's what people don't realize, it's the 45 days after, during the validation of the counts, where you see most of the legal activity. It's not before. And I know people like Denver, you're like, "Pfft." But sorry, guys, I was a senior technical advisor. Also, I was literally in Congress.
2020. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was there, right?
Mhm.
And so I think we're going to have a really weird situation where you're going to they don't have to go out, Sophia, they don't have to go after the whole country. It's just specific swing states and swing counties that I think they're calling a question foreign interference. Maybe we'll bring the Italian satellite theories back, maybe the broken algorithms for Chavez, maybe the German server farms, maybe the Chinese paper ballots, maybe the quantum financial system marked ballots where the National Guard were going to, arrest the Bidens.
Mm.
All that stuff was utilized to try to get Pence to object to the electors. So my fear is that this draft executive order, which they've already named 14248, I've read it and it's gobbledygook. And I think my biggest fear is that, violence happened on January 6th. I don't think there's going to be violence like January 6th. I want to let you guys know. I don't think so. I think the violence is going to be very specific to certain polling locations, whether it's, instigated violence, Sophia, or it's actually lawfare in those specific districts. I think we're going to see one of the craziest midterms with legal insanity we've ever seen. But with the polling, I think there's an overwhelming number of votes out there for the Democrats to take back the majority in the House.
What do you think about this force he's building that was reported today by a number of outlets? It's like a deployment force, whether it's going to be with the National Guard or ICE or however it is he's trying to do this. I don't think, Denver, we're paying attention the way we ought to be paying. I'm a constitutional law scholar. You're a brilliant, what I would call, you're a forensic tech. You're just damn awesome. All this stuff.
Oh, no.
Wait,
So
what,
you
what
and
am I?
I are
What am I, by
approaching
the
this-
way?
Well,
am I-
I don't know yet. You're a great host and awesome. But I'm saying I'm approaching this as a professor, right? As a constitution, as a lawyer, and I'm trying to dissect it that way. He's given us the real nitty gritty. But if you're the American people, I think there's some serious questions about, are they building a force? Is ICE going to come and intimidate me at the polls?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that he's got a lot of power right now, Denver, and
All right.
I don't know.
And
Let's
how much of that would you, respectfully, would you say falls under the category of conspiracy theory?
So there's two that's what I was going to get to.
Respectfully.
So there's multiple things, right? When you're talking about what's going to happen. The only thing we can use is facts and data that backed up past performance as indicative of future performance. So we saw January 6th in violence through radicalization and propaganda. We know this. I mean, it's, and so when you look at the facts of the case, the metadata, even the Meadows text, which started talking about alternate elected theory, the first guy to ever mention it was actually Rick Perry in the Meadows text, if you guys want to know history. You're looking at the downstream effect. Violence is not out of the question. But what I try to what I try to separate is possibilities and probabilities. I think it's possible there's going to be violence because people are radicalized, right? And if they think the election is stolen by big groups, I think it's possible there's violence. Is it probable? That's difficult for me to say. I don't think it's necessarily probable. I think what's more than likely are massive legal challenges overwhelming specific courts. I think they've already got their legal challenges in place, which I think is, and here's where it gets a little nutty, and Sophia, I think you'll like this. I think once you see voters who feel like there's a specific legal challenge in their district or in their state or in their county that looks just incredibly illegal and ridiculous and based on conspiracy theories, that's when you see reciprocal violence. That's when you see people say, I've had enough, and that's when violence starts.
The No Bull Political Arena is on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us and your host a follow.
Hey everybody, this is Sophia Nelson. Follow me at I am Sophia Nelson on every one of my social media platforms.
I'm Bill O'Reilly, and you can reach me at Twitter at WFBOR.
Hey, this is TJ. Follow me on X or Twitter at TJ McCormack.
This is Brian Mistro, and you can follow me on X at Brian_Mistro or follow along on Facebook at Brian.Mistro.
A No Bull Media Group member.